He's joined us on Starting Up. Now, compiling a list of the country's fastest growing companies, it can be quite a daunting task. Not only do you have to compare data between thousands of companies, but also audit all the information that you receive. Well, that's exactly what US-based AllWorld network did when they launched India Fast Growth 25. India's fastest growing 25 companies across multiple sectors. Here they are.
The Indian School of Business, Harvard-based AllWorld Network and TIE came together to host the Fast Growth 25, an initiative which for the first time ever ranked India's fastest growing 25 companies.
You're in India with all of you.
The AllWorld Network is the brainchild of Professor Michael Porter, which compiles country-specific fast growth lists using a clearly defined process.
Companies apply online, they fill out a survey, but there's only one way we rank them. The fastest growing companies who are at least 3 years old provide us audited statements, and we look, the number one company has the fastest revenue growth from the base year to the third year. Number two company slightly less.
Apart from this, all companies must have a revenue of at least 2 crores with a minimum of 6 employees. After the keynote address by Srini Raju of private equity firm People Capital, it was the moment everyone was waiting for. The winners of the Fast Growth 25. Right on top of the list, with a whopping growth rate of 4,823%, Redbus.in. Recognition which has got all their communication channels buzzing.
Our jobs at Redbus.in is flooded with CVs, very good profiles that probably we would not have attracted otherwise. VCs are making calls to us, customers' trust in us increases. So all the good things are happening for being selected as the number one.
Apart from Redbus.in, some of the other companies that made it to the top 25 are Bang Bang Films, Micromax, The Loot and App Labs. The key sectors represented are technology, healthcare and travel. While Bangalore and Mumbai are home to almost 50% of the members of the elite club. And all of them have their own unique strategies which have helped them crack into the top 25.
We really tried to focus very much upon customer satisfaction, and we made our company in such a way that every employee of ours is very, very customer oriented and customer centric.
Most important secret to our success is that we have always recruited freshers and then trained them to actually do the job which we are doing today. And because of that, our attrition levels are absolutely low.
Apart from all the investor and media interest, the big reward for all of them, an invitation to Harvard University where they will meet the fast growth companies of 10 other countries. Certainly an experience to look forward to. The goal for them now though is clear, to maintain or build upon their position and make it to the Fast Growth 100 list that will be announced in the next 6 months.
Well, exciting times ahead for those fast growth winners. In fact, a lot of you watching must be wondering how folks like Redbus managed to get on top of that list. Well, Sudhir Sial is getting to the bottom of things. He organized a special panel that included 3 members who actually figured on that list. Secrets to fast growth, here they are.
The participants in the panel discussion, Phanindra Sama, founder of Redbus.in and number 1 on the Fast Growth 25 list. Sameer Mehta, founder of Suminter India Organics. And Ramu Kalipali, founder of TravelSpice.com. Apart from the 3 companies on the Fast Growth 25, we also have Dr. Krishna Tanuku, Head of Entrepreneurship Development at ISB Hyderabad, and Vipin Agrawal of Nexus Venture Partners, who brings in an investor's perspective. Time for us now to listen in. So thank you very much for joining us for this special panel discussion. I'm going to start off by addressing my first question to Phanindra or Funny. Funny, while you were starting off, you moved from 50 lakhs to 60 crore over a 3-year period. If you look at the 3 main things startups focus on, which is team, product or sales, Which bet of those three do you think you got the most right?
I think it was a team. I was looking at all the growth rates that we had and etc. And almost all of the times the growth was driven by the team members. And I think we've got it really right, at least the first few people.
Yeah. Sure. So retaining talent is a big challenge for most startups, and there's always this question of how do you reward an employee? Do you reward him with equity, or do you reward him with overpaying him? So how has Redbus done it?
Yeah, I think retailing talent in our case was very personal, and I think it's the same in many cases, because I would have lost many of our team members if not I've changed myself, right? I mean, I used to be really worried about some things not getting met, so I used to go behind people and etc., and they would get irritated. And then there is a famous saying that people leave bosses and not the offices, right? It's not the money. We are amongst the lowest paying companies, probably amongst the top 25.
All prospective employees out there, watch out. So Ramu, you were telling me about some of the strategies Travel Spice used, and you evolved a very interesting strategy to make sure that your employees were both rewarded and in some ways motivated. So why don't you tell us all what that strategy was?
I think one thing we are very focused on right from the beginning is try to map the interests of the individual to the interests of the company. So I think we have right from the beginning profit share and equity as well. Like Funny said, we are probably one of the lowest paying employers here as well.
But competition is
even with that, it is very important if we do have a wrong person in the place to move that person out, because it's not helpful for the other people who are performing very well.
So it's as much as retaining the right people as it is letting go of the wrong ones.
That's correct.
So you've been quick to execute in terms of
both sides, especially in the sales and marketing side. Yes.
Okay. Warning signals. So Samir, I'm going to turn to you. You've been in a sector where probably it's the toughest to recruit talent, because in organic farming you were recruiting folks who would be dealing with organic farmers and would be going from one farm to another. What has been your strategy in terms of retaining, because it's also one of the constraints you had to high growth in your initial phase?
We are in a very old school business, but doing it in a new way. So it was very difficult to find talent that had experience in the organic sector in India, because it was a very nascent sector in early 2004. So we decided that to look at similar industries, look at conventional farming, look at basically manufacturing industries, and recruit people who worked with either farmers directly or with people similar to a mindset of a farmer.
So for you it was as much about recruiting the right people who would be a natural fit with the requirements of the job in many ways.
That is correct. Yeah.
We have an investor on our panel, and surprisingly or not surprisingly, we have 3 invested funded companies, right? So Vipin, I'm going to ask you perhaps a trick question. Is funding a necessary ingredient for fast growth?
Funding doesn't just come with the money that you bring to the table for the companies. What investors bring to the table when they align with the companies is also a huge network. That network is something which all these companies in the long run want, is critical, because in the early stage of the companies it is this network which will help these companies reach out to different people across the industry.
So Dr. Krishna, I'm going to throw this to you. Do you think raising capital from an investor sometimes puts unrealistic expectations in terms of growth to the startup?
So absolutely. If you bring too much capital too early in advance, and then there are other factors that come in, most of the things will start focusing, or including the investors, most of them will be focusing on the returns on the investment, but not necessarily what needs to be done in order to secure a appropriate market position.
So Samir, you were in an interesting situation in Suminter a few years ago when you were just looking to raise your second round, right? And you were in a dilemma whether to raise the second round and go after market and expand further. What were you thinking through that decision? Why don't you take us through what decision you finally made?
So we did raise our second round, and one of the things I firmly believe as an entrepreneur is, if you look at the history of entrepreneurship and the history of failed companies, a lot of failed companies have had beautiful ideas and good business models, but because of undercapitalization, they failed to make it. So I strongly believe that as a company that wants to grow exponentially and you really want to hit it big, there is never a time when you're overcapitalized. And I believe that you take the money when the investor wants to give it to you.
I'm going to shift this discussion into diversification, right? So Redbus has been focused on buses. A number of other of your competitors do buses and do a whole number of other things. And a lot of diversification opportunities would have come to you in your growth path. On the one hand, an opportunity is an opportunity and needs to be evaluated. On the other hand, you've been doing very well with just buses. So how do you ensure if you do take an opportunity, how do you ensure you still maintain your growth path, or what's the kind of decision making you undertake when you're looking at a diversification opportunity?
Initially when we started, it's not that okay, we want to be entrepreneurs and then we looked around what are the good businesses and internet is happening, so let's get into the bus. It was not that. It was a personal problem and we're trying to solve that problem. And then during those days when we wanted to name the company, when we actually spread the word amongst our friends saying okay, we're going to name the company Redbus, a lot of them came back. I mean, some people from even the investment community came back and said, why do you want to restrict yourself to red bus? I mean, if you like the color red, you call it red travel. Or just the red or something like that. Our main motivation was to solve this problem of not getting access to information about buses, not getting bus tickets.
So you think this clear focus on buses has really paid off for you over the last 4 years?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Vipin, in your experience in dealing with your portfolio, have you consistently seen companies that focus on one niche outperform more diversified offerings?
The one thing which I've seen is companies which falter. They've been growing tremendously well. They've grown from 5 crores. I've seen a company grow from 5 crore to 100 crore business over a span of 2 years. But the point that it faltered was the point when the company actually started to think on through different lines. And why it happens, why that failure happens is because as an entrepreneur, and just as Fanny was mentioning, your vision or your goal should be to conquer one field before you move on to the next one.
So Dr. Krishna, this is something you've been speaking about. You always maintain that fast growth is one thing, but also what's important is sustainable growth.
Absolutely.
So what in your view are the risks for the very fast growing companies?
I think that the growth plan has to be more in terms of phase plan. In phase one, obviously, when you start a company, you really want to get your markets, you want to get your customers. So whichever customer comes on your way, you want to grab him or her and then do that. That is important because that's how you establish yourself or you validate your idea. Then the question comes in terms of sustainability of the growth. And the moment you increase your size of the organization or size of the product portfolio or size of the market segments, systems and the processes and your ability to delegate, and those kinds of risks will come in. If you don't delegate, if you try to grow too fast, then finally the people may end up doing different things, not necessarily in a focused manner.
So you're saying lack of delegation is
that's one aspect, and the second thing is you have to decide in what direction you want to grow in what period.
I'm just going to end this by asking what the topic of the panel is secret to fast growth. So Dr. Krishna, one secret to fast growth in your view?
Believe in yourself, be transparent, and be a team player.
Samir?
Build a great team, have a focus, have a great product, and be focused on the markets you're going to address.
Sure. Funny?
Yeah, have a very good team and put in all your efforts to retain that team.
Sure. Ramu?
Aligning the interests of an individual to the company very carefully.
Vipin?
Just be passionate about what you're doing.
Fantastic. So varied opinions. I'd like to thank all of you for joining me on this panel. It's been an honor hosting it. Thank you very much for watching.
Well, that's what Sunita made of that pitch, but we'd love to hear from you. Tell us what you thought. Write into us on startingup@etnow.tv. Don't forget to send us a profile of your startup, and who knows, you could well be featured here on the show. In fact, you can also SMS us on 58888. All you need to do is type SU, leave a space followed by your message. With that, we'll wrap it up here on the show this week. But before we go, as we say every week, remember there's never a better time than now to go out there and start up.